Hi there, it's David Ostriker here in KarmiEl. We're in Elul, less than a month away from Rosh Hashanah. Thinking about tshuva, thinking about how we can improve ourselves, improve the world we live in, improve our relationships with our fellow man, our wives, our kids, Hashem himself. It's a time for tshuva, it's a time to analyze, to be introspective and to think about it. Time to hear the sound of the shofar to remind us that the clock is ticking and we're getting close to the day of judgment, in which the books of life will be opened and decisions will be made for the coming year. It's not a time to fear, in the sense of quaking, I don't think. It's a time for introspection and improvement, and to know that it's a time to make change, especially. The Parsha is a Parsha filled with, in many ways, administrative things. It begins with a discussion of judges, and maybe one of the most famous quotes from the Bible, from the Torah itself, comes from the opening lines of SHOFTIM about judges. It says that bribes blind the eyes of the wise. My dear friend Ronnie Weissman has a beautiful song about it. It's on KosherTube right now. And it's making a statement that even those who are wise, those who are thoughtful, those who are understanding, even those are blinded by a gift, by a bribe. And a bribe can come in many different ways, most well known as money itself. So judges are warned at the beginning of civilization by the Torah that you cannot take a gift from any contestant in your court. It goes on to discuss about when the Jewish people come into their land and they want a king like other nations, that God will permit them to have a king, but that he must be a brother, not a foreign king, right? He must be chosen properly, right? And a king, of course, is the only individual in the Torah that is commanded to be a humble individual. Here in Israel, we have been on the edge of a major conflict, well, since the creation of the state. But last week we exchanged gunfire with Hezbollah, serious attack by Hezbollah and a response by the IDF. And this parsha reminds us about what happens when Israel goes out to war. It's led not just by generals, but by a priest chosen for the purpose of speaking to the troops. Let me read you a little quote. Maybe you'll recognize it. That he which hath no stomach for this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for his convoy put in his purse. We would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. Torah? No, came long after Torah. These are the words of William Shakespeare put into the mouth of Harry, King Henry V, on the edge of the Battle of Agincourt, when the British are tremendously outnumbered by the French, and it looks like they're doomed. And his brother, his cousin Westmoreland, says to him, would that we would have one of every 1,000 persons, men asleep today in London, would come and fight with us. And Harry says, no, just the opposite. In fact, if there is anybody in our troops who doesn't have a stomach for the fight, send him home, pay for his transportation, make sure he has a good passport, because I don't want to fight in that man's company who does not have the heart to fight with, to join with me. But where does this idea originate? It originates in this week's Parsha. And the Torah is far more subtle, far more complex. What does the Torah say? the Kohen of the battle comes before the troops and says, if there is anyone who has built a new house but has not dedicated it, let him go back to his home lest he die in battle, and somebody else would dedicate it. And is there anyone who has planted a vineyard but has not harvested it? Let him go back to his home lest he die in battle, and somebody else harvest it. And if there is anyone who has paid the bride price for a wife, but has not yet married her, let him go back to his home, lest he die in battle and marry another. The official goes on to say, and this is still part of the Torah quote, the officials go on to say, on addressing the troops, is there anybody afraid and disheartened? Let him go back to his home, lest the courage of his comrades flag like him. Now let's look at the Shakespeare one more time. That he which hath no stomach for this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for his convoy put in his purse. We, the king is saying, we would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. Now, interestingly, there's only one reason given by Harry, and anybody who leaves under these terms is certainly to be a shameful person. But not so with the Torah. The Torah lists somebody who's built a house, somebody who's planted a vineyard, somebody who's engaged, right? All of those people, it's not appropriate for them to battle, right? Somebody who's engaged but not yet married. Right? And lastly, somebody who doesn't have the heart. Because we don't want to fight with people who don't have the heart to fight with us. This is what it has in common with Harry. But unlike King Henry, the Torah is saying, these four groups will depart now. And we don't know who is going for what reason. So we're not causing shame to the coward. We're allowing him to go quietly for whatever his reason. Now, there's one other fine note which we should note here. It's a very important note. It says someone who is engaged but has not yet married. What about somebody who's married? Well, interestingly, the Torah doesn't speak to that person here, because the Torah tells us that such a person should not even be among the ranks of those who are about to do battle. In the first year after marriage, the most important thing to the couple, who are the foundation of the nation itself, family is the foundation of the nation, right? The husband doesn't go out to war. He must spend that year close to his wife, with his wife, right? That's the most important thing. And what does it tell us? He's not in that group. He's not excused. He never joined that group. Because Halakha tells us that our nation is built on family. It's built on chassan and kala, husband and wife, children. They are the very building blocks of Israel. Israel is one giant family. Over and over and over, we witness it personally all the time. That is the nature of Eretz Israel. And so it is now when we feel threatened on 7 fronts. Not 3 fronts, it turns out. Right? We're reminded of this parsha, that Hashem will go out to fight with us. And even though we will always be outnumbered, we will be victorious. And those people who fight, I'm not saying how observant or not observant they are, but they are tzaddikim. I have to tell you, somebody who is prepared to lay down their life for me, for my survival, and does not even know me, is a tzaddik. And if I see that person, wherever he is, in whatever uniform he wears, whatever history he has, I owe that person gratitude. I owe that person a thank you. And I owe recognition that that person defended the people of Israel, the Jewish nation. And that person deserves a thank you. Much more than someone who just holds the door for me. It's a very serious thing. And yet, the Torah says a newly married man for the first year builds Israel by being with his wife, by being with his family. After that, he serves, but not in that early stage. It makes a statement about how important the building blocks of the nation are, and there are priorities. Wishing you Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, a productive time of tshuva, preparation, hear the sound of the shofar, right? Know that we're coming to that day of judgment, and that judgment, Baruch Hashem, will be positive for all of you. Shabbat Shalom, David Ostriker, here in KarmiEl.